Welcome to the CFB Dynasty podcast with hosts Matt Knowles and Brian McElfish.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? It's time once again for the CFBDynasty.com podcast. My name is Matt Knowles. As always, I'm here alongside the one, the only Brian McElfish, as well as this dude over here. Not sure how he is able to sneak into this thing, Mr. Doug Gravely. B-Mac, Doug, how you guys doing out there today?
Sup. Pretty good. I just got back from a quick trip to Ohio, and this hat, if you can see it, this Travis Matthew golf cart hat, I had two people walk up to me at different points of my trip and say, "Oh, are you forklift certified? That's a cool forklift hat there."
So B-Mac, you just mentioned golf. So the last time we were on this podcast, you and Doug talked about how you had this golf series going on, and the winners of each round was going to do something when it came to one of the college football games you guys are going to be going to. Why don't you guys give an update? Doug, I'm going to go to you on this. Bump B-Mac on this. Doug, I'm going to go to you. Give us an update on who's in the lead and why is it B-Mac?
So, if you guys remember from the last episode here on the CFB podcast, Brian was up 1-0, which meant I had to buy the tickets for the South Carolina and Florida game in South Carolina this coming year. I'm happy to announce that Brian is now in a 2-0 lead, which means I have to not only buy the tickets, I now have to pay for the hotel. And I told Brian that it looks like a Motel 6 kind of trip, but he told me that it was a Hilton minimum. So at this point, guys, if you want to send some money over my way, for hearing my expert college knowledge, I would appreciate it, because right now we're sitting in nosebleeds and probably sleeping in my truck. But I will tell you, the highlight of my round was not the 104 that I shot, which would have very much been like 107 or 108, because I was averaging 3 to 4 putts a hole. But I did sink one, not this last round because I did it again, but the round I played Brian, I did chip one in off the green. I should have quit there because I think we were tied-ish around that point. And then after that, I just decided to let Brian run away with it, even though he didn't play that good either.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, we both sucked. It was like we were both like 10 to 12 strokes worse than normal, and whatever. It didn't feel great either way.
Basically, you're saying you were trying to give Doug a chance, and he still couldn't overtake your terrible day.
Let's just say that if one of us would have played mediocre, we would have smoked the other one.
Yeah. It's true.
Not even a good round for us. If we would have played mediocre, the other one would have got smoked.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to jump over to a controversial topic right now. We talked about the excitement around getting the new college football video game. They backed it up from 2023 to 2024. There's been a lot of news coming out about it. Then all of a sudden, there's now this wave of college football athletes talking about boycotting the game. Why do they want to boycott the game? Because news came out that each person is going to get a payout. To the layman, that sounds like, oh man, they're really getting screwed in this whole deal. But we're going to talk about some facts here in just a minute. B-Mac, what do you think about the thought about these college football athletes wanting to boycott the game because they're not getting enough money?
Honestly, I'm not a very emotional person, but this makes me feel sad. I really wish they would just be able to come out with the game on time. I'm still hoping they'll figure it out. But dang, man, it's rough. Like, whatever, you get $500, that's cool. People are concerned about their worth and all that stuff, but hopefully they'll just be able to go live without him. So if Caleb Williams is one that, wants whatever, $100,000 to be in the game, which obviously wouldn't happen, but let's say he wants $10K to be in the game, then just build it without him. It sucks for USC fans, but they'll be able to create a Caleb Williams.
So what do you think about it, Doug? I mean, I've got some numbers over here to talk about in just a minute, but what is your initial reaction to this?
It's kind of not a surprise to me, because we kind of live in a selfish culture.
Yeah.
It could be selfish of us to want the video game and, not really care if these kids, get rich from it or not. Could be, or could be just, hey, remember how it was back in the day when you were just able to play video games. But at the end of the day, you've got players out there like, it's cool. I know he's not really a big name kid, but like a Jason Jones from Arkansas, on the quarterback roster, says he just can't wait to be in the video game. That's a lot of people's dream, is to be in a video game. So at the end of the day, we live in a selfish world with a kind of a selfish culture. So it doesn't really surprise me.
So I think one of the things that people don't understand here is that if you've ever been in a class action lawsuit, people talk about, oh, if you, Facebook had this thing and there's millions and millions and millions of dollars set aside for it. So you can go join this class action lawsuit. Then you get your payout. It's like $3 per person.
Yeah.
$500. Let's look at the numbers here and let's take the numbers and make them easy. If you have 133 teams in college football and 100 players per team were to get paid for being in the game, then just make it an easy number like that. And it was $500 per player. That is $6.65 million that would be set aside just to pay the athletes. So $500 per player may not seem like much, but $6.65 million is a lot of money to set aside for players. So I think that maybe the game manufacturers need to go back and say, should we be paying $500 across the board, or should it be Power 5 players get X, Group of 5 get Y, or incoming players? Because if this, I would assume that they're expecting to do this on a yearly basis, that maybe it's by class, where if you're a, senior or a starter returning or something like that, you get a higher number, and then you're the, the backup punter on Troy, that you're not going to be getting the same amount as Caleb Williams. So I think there might be some room for them to kind of maneuver the numbers, but I don't think that EA or whoever is going to be is out there trying to bilk the athletes. I mean, there's only so much money to go around. You can't just be like, pay me more. Well, if they just went up to $1,000, and you're talking over $13 million set aside just for the players.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me think back to the WNBA, where they want, whatever, private jets and stuff, but there's no revenue to pay for it. So you can want what you want, but there's only so much money to go around. So I'm an eternal optimist. I think they'll figure it out. But man, I thought that the first year we didn't have the video game, I was like, surely it'll be out next year because there's so much revenue at stake. But it hasn't been the case. The good news is they're continuing on, like going out there and getting all the footage, all the sounds, all the things that they need to make the game. And then I think the players thing will work its way out. I sure as heck hope so.
So on another note, Doug, I got a question. Yes or no? Are you a fan of FAU Owls basketball?
I'm not.
Are you a fan of Miami Hurricanes college basketball?
I'm not.
Are you a fan of the Florida Panthers hockey team?
I'm not.
Are you a fan of the Miami Heat basketball team?
I am not.
So here's what I want to know. How in the world did you and why did you go curse every one of those teams? So Florida as a state has seen an unbelievable set of underdog stories this year. You had both Miami and FAU go to the Final Four in March Madness. You had both the Florida Panthers and the Miami Heat, unheard of as 8 seeds, go on this, both of them incredible runs, to both of them run out of gas. Every one of them did not make the finals or did not win the championship. So would you rather be the team that makes the championship and falls, or would you rather not be there at all? To both of you guys.
Oh goodness.
Doug, I know you have a biased opinion on this. Would you rather get there and not be able to get over that hump, or would you rather just not be there at all, watch somebody else?
Man, I think honestly for me, and I'm going to go a little in depth on this, it depends where you are as a team. Getting there is great, but if you know that potentially your entire team is going to be gone after this season or whatever, no matter what sport you're playing in, if this was your like, hey, we got to win now kind of season, and you get there and lose, I mean, where do you go from there? You put all your cards on the table, get there, and still, in my words, you still fail. Like, where do you go? I mean, or would you rather be that team that's working its way to the top potentially? I don't know. Me personally, I'd rather not get there at all. Because if you're putting all your cards on the table and then say, like, let's use the Miami Heat for example. Say, and he's not, but say Jimmy Butler was in the last year of his contract. You know, they put all their cards on the table for a guy like that, and now he's gone. Where do you go from there? So, I don't know, but I think you can look at it at on both ends and say, hey, maybe we're just one piece away. But I think it's a little different from college to pro sports in the sense of college is always changing. So I don't know. BMAC may have a better opinion about this.
What about you, BMAC? You're the winner of many college football championships, and you're also the loser of many college football championships and fantasy football championships. What is your opinion on this?
Yeah, it's really hard to lose, and it really sucks to lose, especially when you think you're going to win or you're, playing against the underdog and you should theoretically win and you just don't. But as a competitor, I think you want to be there to take your shot. And if you lose, you lose. It's one of those things that's kind of fun about sports. It really sucks when you're the one that lost and you're thinking back to that one play that could have gone differently, whether you're a fan of a football team or it's your fantasy team. I still think, you want to get there, and then you've got those stories, they might be whatever, painful. You might have lost all the league money or whatever if your league's into gambling, but then you've got those stories, a few months later and all that stuff to talk about. Oh, what if that one guy didn't fumble the ball or whatever? I think that stuff's fun over time.
I think you look at what's happened in the state of Florida this year, and obviously every single one of those teams would want to win a championship. But just think about those fan bases. Even if FAU doesn't, go to the championship or win it, they still want a region. And you got to go on this incredible run and follow these players that you never would have heard of before. And so for that fan base, they got to be a part of something that they may never be a part of again. Same thing for Miami, the Hurricanes. And you look at the Heat and the Panthers, they got to run for the first time in major sports history in the United States. You had two teams in the finals simultaneously in professional sports from the same metro area. That has never happened before in the United States. So it was neat being able to watch those things, watch some of the incredible wins that the Heat had. As a Heat fan and a Heat lifer myself, it was great being able to see them at least get there. I mean, they ran out of gas. They played against Nikola Jovic, who's just incredible. I mean, it's like, he goes in there and he kicks your butt and you're just kind of like, well, you can't have the golf clap. You're like, well, he just did it with a smile on his face. You can't hate that guy. And then watching the Panthers do some of the things they did to even get there, some of the crazy wins they had, of course you want to win, but I'm glad to see that they all were able to get there. I'd rather have those underdogs be able to at least get there than not get there at all. That's why we need a playoff in college football. Boom, BMAC, rolled that back around on you.
Yeah, and I can talk about Jimmy Butler from a 76ers fan standpoint and how they, kind of chose Ben Simmons over Butler. But let's get back to some football here. So quick updates from us on CFB. So we've got a huge rankings expansion that is in the works. And if you log in, you'll see it. So if you're logged in and you go to Draft Prep, Draft Central, that's like the hub where you can get all the rankings and see everything, I'll throw it up on the screen here. So yeah, draft prep, draft central, boom. And then I'm on the quarterbacks post, so you can see the quarterback rankings, and these are all updated as news comes in. We're going over depth charts and correcting those, adding pieces, from the portal and all that stuff. We've had a massive update on the depth charts, and that's also under draft prep and then depth charts. But anyways, these are going to be expanded. But don't be fooled like I just was, like showing you the teaser rankings, which are ranking CFF. Those are just the teaser rankings. Then you click in, go to Draft Central, and boom, that's where you'll see the actual rankings. And we've got quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends, all with I think quarterbacks are like 150 plus, maybe running backs, receivers are more than 200, and tight ends are over 100. So these are getting expanded as we work on the depth charts. So you'll see a lot of movement in there, and that's what we talk about in the next podcast, which really, Doug, puts pressure on us, right, to get all this stuff knocked out within the next week, which is going to be a lot of hours. But it'll be a weight off the shoulders to get the preseason rankings like full and in there for redraft rankings. And next week we'll be going over all of the changes and things that we've made, which there will be plenty. But as of right now, those are the main things for us. The main focus would be internal rankings, depth charts, and then Doug continues to post expert Q&As as they come in for different writers and things that we've talked to, which also affect our rankings, and we're adjusting them manually as new information comes in.
All right, well, good stuff. I love seeing the site growing and improving over time. If you guys are getting ready to start doing your draft prep, we're mid-June right now, so in say 6 to 7 weeks, we should start seeing some drafts start happening. So make sure you're getting up and logging in to CFBDynasty.com, subscribing so that you can be getting all the up-to-date information, so you can have that leg up in your fantasy league. Make sure you're up on the Discord channel, and that way you can be talking with other people that are like-minded in other leagues and might be able to give you those little tidbits to be able to take over your league and not come in second place and not be a Doug and not be a Miami Heat and win that league.
And Doug will tell you, like, our depth charts are way better than the magazines. Like, those magazines are so behind. And they just came out like a week or two ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was telling Brian last week, like, I did a lot of research just on my own on, like, the tight ends, for example. And some of these magazines, guys, they have tight ends playing for schools that the tight end has transferred from. So
yeah, I think that's going to be one of the biggest issues this year, and then going forward, is having the different portal windows. That the portal windows aren't going to concur with what their print schedules are. So I think there's going to be a lot more outdated information now than there ever has been in the past.
Yeah, so just keep an eye on that type of stuff, y'all. If you want, honestly, really up-to-date info, I mean, CFB Dynasty is we're updating this weekly, sometimes every couple days, as much as we can. So we're trying to stay as up-to-date as possible. And with, like you said, with the transfer portal, it's an ever-changing thing, and that's why we try to stay on top of it. So,
all right. So with that being said, the main subject of today's podcast is our first redraft mock draft. We're going to do a quick little one just to see how everybody's going to be thinking. This is as if this was a brand new league. We are all going to take two different teams. It's all going to be a 6-team league, and we're going to have 6 rounds. So we're going to draft 36 players, and nobody has an existing roster. There's no college to pro. There's no Debbie. This is just a standard. If you want to get into college fantasy football, where are you going to start? BMAC, you want to give people the motivation for why you like doing these mock drafts as time goes on?
Because people search for them. And so we want to have content for them on this stuff. But also, no, the reality is getting some of those practice, mock drafts, doing some of your own prep, reading our content, other people, Campus to Canton and others putting out these mock drafts. And I know Jared runs a bunch, and those are all good like content to kind of see average draft positions, see where people are taking. So, like you've got your eye on, maybe those one or two, they call them my guys, those players you've got to have just, you've got your eye on them. You think they're going to break out, whatever. You got to figure out where you can take them at the right value, because it is all about value. Like you want to get the best players you can, of course, but you want to get them in the right spot. And that, this will really help that out.
All right. So with that being said, I guess BMAC selected an order prior to getting online here. And so the lineup is my team is going to be drafting first. Now, Brian, are we doing this a standard draft or a snake draft?
Snake it up.
All right. Snake draft. I've got the first pick in the odd numbered rounds. Doug has got the second pick apropos. In the odd numbered rounds, BMAC has got the third. Then I've got the fourth, Doug with the fifth, BMAC with the sixth. So we're going to snake for 6 rounds. And then we're going to go from there. You could draft whoever you want, but we would think you'd probably want to be drafting as if you're trying to put a starting lineup together. If somebody was to go and draft 6 quarterbacks, that's not going to be very good. So, Doug, throw that draft board away.
Oh, man. I had a lot of tight ends, in my top 5 or 6 picks, but hey, it's cool.
So, BMAC, you ready to get down and do this?
You're up. You're on the clock.
All right. So, I think it's pretty obvious you got to go with Caleb Williams from USC first, the top returning points getter in college fantasy football coming back. You'd have to have a pretty, in my mind, you'd have to have a pretty good argument to not take the number 1 overall points getter first if you have that draft in a new league.
He texted us, Uncle Joe, the famous Uncle Joe. We haven't talked about him in a little while, but he wanted to come on the show at some point. This would have been a great one, maybe on the next version of the mock draft after our massive rankings update. That would be potentially hilarious. So that in the third round,
really
he
fun.
could take Caleb Williams.
And that's after I already picked Caleb Williams, just so you know. If we got a nickel for every time Joe drafted somebody that either A, has already been drafted or has been out of college football since 1994, Doug would be able to pay for that hotel room pretty easily.
You ain't kidding, bro. You ain't kidding. My first year in this league, I remember that, and I was like, "What is going on?" And I remember Brian was like, "Hey, buddy, it's usually a lot more smooth than this," but it was fun. It was a fun draft, and I was like, "Okay, way to get my feet wet. This is fun." So it was great. I really like the Caleb Williams pick, by the way. For me to think that he would slide to me at 2 is a little crazy. So me being a little torn here, honestly, but I think I'm going to go with Bo Nix at number 2. Last year, the number 2 points getter per game at quarterback position, and I really love the weapons that he has there. And he's a great dual threat quarterback. I'm going to go with Bo Nix at number 2.
Both of those guys are in prime positions to, like, with the talent around them, the O-line, the coaching staffs that are there, to really thrive and kill it. I don't know that it's necessarily a must-have early in the draft. I'm looking at, you're thinking about the advantage that you get. Now, those 2 are great picks. The advantage that you get, though, that you can come with like a running back or a top of the line receiver. So I'm going to go with my pick and take the Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. Even though they don't have, the quarterback necessarily locked down, I think he'll be easily the wide receiver number one. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is there. And I like him a lot there in the third pick.
All right, so I've talked to the coaching staff on my my team number 2 here, and we're actually going to jump down the rankings just slightly and go to the number 5 quarterback on the list and go Michael Penix Jr. Reason being, and the reason why we're jumping past there is behind some of the other people that are on the list, is that with this being a redraft league, I feel like with Washington having the top offense in college football last year, there's a much better likelihood of him having a consistent set of performances across the board than Austin Reed. Even though Austin Reed could have a game where he's throwing for 600 yards and 7 touchdowns, you could have a game the week after that could be a clunker, especially at the beginning of the season when they're playing better quality opponents. I think that it's going to be more difficult to get a consistent performance there, and you don't know who's going to be the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receiver at Western Kentucky. So who knows?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Michael Penix Jr. there as the anchor of Team 2.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. Like Ohio State's wide receiving core is absolutely ridiculous and loaded, but it's debatable who's better, Ohio State starting wide receivers versus Washington. They're the next closest one. So the guys that Penix is throwing to in year 2 in that system, you know, he's not a dual threat guy, and you're typically looking at dual threat quarterbacks that'll go in the first round or really early. And I might look at running back or wide receiver there as something that I would want a little bit earlier in the draft. But Penix and Austin Reed as pocket passers, they'll be elite again. They averaged just 3 points, I think, less than like Bo Nix and Caleb Williams averaged last year.
And don't take me going to that pick as being not an apologist for Austin Reed, because I really like Austin Reed.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do a lot of good things, but with this kind of clean slate, I would go Penix first.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick at that spot for sure. We talked about him a little bit. His quarterback, and I'm trying to do these two teams a little bit differently here. And I'm using, Brian's outlook with my second team here. But I'm going to go with Malachi Corley at receiver. I think with Austin Reed staying and the connection they had last year, with Corley averaging almost 17.5 points a game, I know for my fantasy team, one of the things that hurt my team a little bit was consistency at receiver. And with how much Western Kentucky throws the ball, I think there's always going to be catches there for him. So I'm going to go Malachi Corley with my pick here.
Yeah, now this would be the dream scenario in a fictional 6-team league, obviously. Running back typically is going to be going early. First couple picks, I would assume. But for whatever reason, a lot of quarterbacks have gone off the board here with no running backs at the end of round 1. So I'm going to snake it around with Judkins and Rocket Sanders as two guys that I thought neither of them would be available here at the end of round 1 and the beginning of round 2. So kicking it back to team 2, Doug.
Man, team Corley. 2, like I said, it's going to be a little bit different. And I'm going to take a running back at this position, and I'm going to take Corum out of Michigan here. I think that offense is going to be even better and more potent than they were last year. So I think it could be really fun to watch, and I'm going to go Blake Corum here at this pick.
Well, my team 2 is like, you know what? As long as I get one of the top 4 running backs at this spot, then I felt good about the position. So Braylon Allen.
You don't want to
Wisconsin.
Go with Dak?
Braylon Allen from Wisconsin is going to be the pick there.
Yep.
Yep. Nice.
I like it. I was gonna go Allen. So I'm going to go ahead and snag a guy that is fully rested. He had a year off, and now Rasheen Ali is back at running back 1. He put up so good of stats as a freshman. Like I think he's going to come back as the guy and dominate, and he'll pick up where he left off. Not worried at all about the year off. Injured, of course, sort of. So back to Team Bo Nix.
So, man, I've been battling with myself on this pick ever since I took Bo Nix. Do I want to go with a stack here this early, or do I want to go something different? And I think, like you're going to see when you draft in general, it just really depends where the drafts go. And with so many running backs coming off the board, like in a row, I'm probably going to go running back here again. And I'm going to go with a guy that, and I hate to say it, being a Florida fan, and I'm going to skip some people in these rankings, but I'm going to go Trey Benson here for my running back 1 on this team. I think with the fact that team didn't really lose a lot of people, and there's so many weapons, I think the field could be opened up for everybody in that offense this year, and I think Benson's going to see some more really good touches this year.
Well, I agree, and I like Benson a lot as a player. He's super good. We featured him on our breakout running back highlight video a few weeks back. I just think Jordan Travis is going to get his. Like, they're going to do some read options, and then when you get into the red zone, on those read options, the linebacker's going to choose who gets the touchdown. So, or the end, or whatever the read is. So, anyways, let's see, where are we at here? Let me click back over to the draft. We've got Caleb Williams' team on the snake. So it's going to be interesting to see who Matt goes with.
So let me just roll back here to that Trey Benson real quick. So, as the guys that are putting the rankings together, Doug, at the 11th pick in the draft, goes to the number 11 ranked running back on your list. So, Doug, if somebody was out there and they were like, why would you go to the number 11 running back with the number 11 overall pick instead of all those guys above it? How would you justify that pick to somebody, say, that messages you in the Discord chat or somewhere else and wants to know why you would go so far down the list?
So, like we talked about a little bit, before this started, our rankings are going to change all the time, depending on scenarios and depending on who transfers out, who transfers in. There's a lot of things, and a guy could get hurt over the summer. You just never know. So rankings could change. And kind of like our food choices, and BMAC will tell you this, our palate's a little bit different. So, yes, maybe a consensus overall at 11 right now, but there might be a guy up there that Brian has higher than I would have on my personal rankings, which will be cool because hopefully we can also add to the website soon. We've talked about this, personal rankings where we would personally rank people, because then you can see that, yes, maybe as a consensus with Brian and I talking about it, okay, this guy fits at 15 or this guy fits at 8, but maybe my rankings will be a little bit different than that based off what the research we've done or what we've read or how we feel about certain situations. So
okay, so you personally got Trey Benson in your personal rankings higher than 11 is what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, so team 1, going to go with Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver with the next pick, and then going to get a running back for that team because there is no way that a good running back's going to be there. 12 picks later, going to get Will Shipley from Clemson. So that way you got Caleb Williams at quarterback, Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver, Will Shipley at running back for the first 3 picks. I think that team's looking pretty good at that point.
Yeah, definitely. An elite player at each position. That's legit.
So this one's a tough decision for me.
Hold on. Let me scroll down just a little bit, get about the 30th or 40th person on the list. I know you're going to be picking around there, right?
No, I'm not. So I've actually got this guy a little bit ahead of somebody that's on my personal fantasy team. And I think I'm going to go with Torrey Horton out of Colorado State here. at receiver. So we may get back to the guy that's on my personal fantasy team at some point. We have him ranked above Torrey Horton in this, but I'm gonna go Torrey Horton at this pick.
All right, so I'm on the clock here. This team currently has a wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., and running back, Rasheen Ali. So I like the running backs that are available. There's like 4 that I would love to choose from on this team, and I'm kind of hopeful that they come back around to me because I'm going to go ahead and take what I would have as a tier 1 receiver. I think there's 3, maybe 4 tier 1 wide receivers. So I'm going to take Rome Odunze there from Washington, and I'm super excited that he fell to that point.
I was absolutely hoping you go a different direction there.
That was a good pick there, buddy.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those draft scenarios where you had Penix, and I thought you were gonna stack him with Odunze there in the second round, where you took Braylon Allen on this team you're about to draft with. But I was gonna take Allen, so.
Well, I thought you were going to go a different place there, and I actually was going to go stack Penix and Odunze in that next spot if you would not have picked him. So I'll have to go and take another look here.
Potential trade partners in the future.
Yeah, really.
All right, so Matt's team has Penix and Allen. He's on the clock. Let's see what he gets here.
All right, I'm going to go with Jacob Cowing from Arizona. What I'm trying to do is
it's a good pick.
I'm looking at this kind of mock draft from the standpoint that I would rather not be making huge reaches, because people out there are going to look at these kind of drafts and they're going to be basing what they're doing on the drafts we're putting together. So I'm trying to not do too far of a reach, especially when you're only talking about 6 teams, because a lot of those guys you might want are going to be coming back around. And I want the teams that I'm putting together to be in correlation with the way you guys have the rankings set up over there. So Jacob Cowling is going to be the pick for me.
All right. So I'm torn between 3 guys here, and you don't have to scroll very far on the rankings for this, Matt. But I think on this one, I am probably leaning toward Travion Henderson out of Ohio State.
He is the other one that I actually consider drafted there since Brian took Odunze, so that's a good pick.
I like Travion. Man, what a difference a year makes, where people are kind of down on him. Not that the whatever 3rd round pick in the 6-team league is negative or anything, but last year he was a top 3 pick guaranteed. But I like Travion still a lot. While other people are kind of down on him, he would still be probably a top 4, maybe 5 running back for me. But it's on to me now. It's snake o'clock for the end of round 3. This team has Judkins and Rocket Sanders, so I'm feeling great about running back. And I like the quarterbacks that are on the board, so I'm going to kind of hold off a little bit and take a couple people who have potential to be number 1 for their position. Now, there's only so many people in the right offenses in the right system where they could be a number 1. So I'm going to go with DeCorian Clark taking over as the top spot at UTSA for receiver for them. in a quarterback that's been around, I think 6 or 7 years with some great experience. You're laughing. I don't know. Maybe that's legit. I don't know anymore.
He's been around a long time.
And then I'm looking for a points advantage. There are 2 of these in this draft, in my opinion. So how many points per game can I get a leg up on my competitors? Give me Brock Bowers for like
Good
a
pick.
5-point per game advantage over most starting tight ends.
Good pick. That was actually going to be my next pick on this team, so thank you for that.
He was definitely going to be gone this round for sure.
Man, well, that just slapped me in the face. So I think with the FOMO, fear of missing out here, I'm gonna take Drake May on this team with this pick. Give me a good quarterback to go with, good potential. But I'm gonna take Drake May on this team here with this pick.
And for the record, DeCorian Clark's quarterback officially is a 7th-year senior.
Yes.
Solid.
7th-year senior. Yeah, Brock Bowers was absolutely going to be gone at this point because I agree with you. Even though you got to wait 12 more picks to get back and get a quarterback for that second team. There are so many out there, and quarterback is one of those positions that people aren't going to be running, especially in a 6-round draft, 16 draft.
Right.
You're going to still be able to get a bunch of solid guys out there.
Yep.
All right, so we're at Matt's second team. We've got Penix, Braylon Allen, Jacob Cowing. So who you got here for your 4th pick on this team?
Going on Nick Singleton from Penn State at running back.
Nice. I love Singleton, obviously.
Yes, you do.
So I've got Harrison, Adunze, and Rasheen Ali on this team, and I think this is easily an easy value pick for me. I like a lot of the running backs and receivers that are available, or a few at least in this tier, but I'm still going to go with tight end. I really think this is how it's going to play out. Before he got hurt last year, Brant Keithy was the starter and averaged 17 fantasy points per game, right in line with where Brock Bowers ended the season. So if you're looking for a 5-point per game advantage on everyone else as you go into the week, getting Keithy or Bowers is going to do that for you. Features of their offense. So now we're moving on to Doug's team here. He's got Bo Nix at quarterback, Trey Benson at running back, and Torrey Horton at wide receiver. Who you got here for your 4th round pick?
So I'm gonna kind of close out my running back picks here, and somebody that I think is going to be featured quite a bit because I don't have a lot of faith in the rest of their offense is Alabama's Jace McClellan. I don't know what you're going to get out of the passing game there. We saw it kind of struggled a little bit in returns receivers last year. And I really like Jace from Alabama because I think they're going to go more old school.
I agree with that assessment. I think they will. It'd be interesting to see if he moves up in our rankings when we do this overhaul over the coming week. Kind of as we get all those players in, all that stuff, all the second, third string players and all that stuff into the rankings for the super deep leagues out there. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. Like McClellan a lot. He's also great out of the backfield. So if you have a quarterback that's like less confident going down the field, he's a great option for dump downs as well.
Yep.
So I think you'll see more of that, more tight end catches than normal out of Alabama, no matter who wins that job, I feel like, at least early on in the year. So we're on to Snake, back to the first pick of the draft, first team, Matt's first one. We've got Caleb Williams, Emeka Egbuka, and Will Shipley so far. 2 picks. Who you got?
So the first pick, I'm going to go with LaDamian Webb. And LaDamian Webb, when he put up stats last year, crushed it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was a couple of games in very unfortunate situations where he just sucked. And that doesn't mean he did. It was just the offense just wasn't producing the way it needed to. But with another year under his belt, I think he's going to be a monster. So hopefully he can get consistent. That's one of my big things is I would much rather have guys that are going to get me 20, 25 points a game consistently than 35 one game and 5 the next.
Yep.
So LaDamian Webb is going to go there. And then I'm going to go with, I don't want to say a controversial pick, but one that's probably going to be controversial if leagues don't handle it correctly. And that is Oronde Gadsden II, who has been moved to tight end from wide receiver, fly paper hands, catches everything that goes his way. If you're out there and you run a league, which you shouldn't be watching this if you don't have some kind of interest in college fantasy football, make sure you've got him set as a tight end only. You know that our leagues are very big on you draft a player, you get one position per player, none of this nonsense about dual position crap. That to me is the biggest garbage thing in all of fantasy sports, providing unfair advantage. You draft a guy in a spot that's where he needs to be. Oronde Gadsden is now a tight end on the Syracuse depth chart. So you could see him getting up there into that top 1 or 2 spots, probably not overtaking 1, but potentially getting up there as a close 1A because he's got the potential to get wide receiver numbers. Because his position on the field really isn't going to change. He just has that designation as being a tight end now. So I'm going to take Oronde Gadsden II as my tight end.
I think that's a good pick. He was going to be my tight end pick here. And like I said earlier, with your drafts may change a little bit as the drafts go on. Your boards may start looking smaller, but I think Jatavion Sanders, round 5 for this team is not a bad get here, and with Quinn Ewers having another year under the system and hopefully staying healthy this year, I think Sanders could help Texas stretch this field out a little bit, and I think he could potentially. I think this year there's a possibility of 4 or 5 tight ends just really blowing the rest of the pack of tight ends away. And I think we're kind of hitting the nail on the head here with the tight ends we've drafted. And I think these 4 guys could potentially blow the rest of the field of tight ends away this year. So.
All right, B-Mac, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. on your first team, Rasheen Ali at running back, Roma Dunze at wide receiver, Brant Kuithe at tight end. Who's your next pick?
I'm going with so it's really a battle for me right here. I like Kavorian Barnes a lot from UTSA, kind of taking over at running back, but I'm going to go with like the known commodity there with Frank Gore Jr. And he averaged just under 20 fantasy points a game last year. And I think just his productivity is going to continue. And while I think Barnes is going to break out, I'm like those two are neck and neck to me in the rankings, and I'm going to go with Gore.
I do find it interesting that BMAC has got 2 different teams he's drafted for, and he has said, you know what, I don't need a quarterback. Bump quarterbacks, forget it. Quarterbacks are unimportant. Give me a kicker.
I love kickers.
I think like, BMAC has said multiple times, there's and it is, you could look at it as a stretch, you could look at it as, like I've said before, how the draft goes potentially, but I think Brian and I are pretty high on a lot of quarterbacks this year. So I think, and you could take this from me, those of you that are listening and thinking about draft boards, you could potentially wait a little bit on a quarterback. There's a lot that we're really high on. It's just sometimes, like for me and say Bo Nix as an example, you fall victim sometimes of falling in love with a guy and hopefully nothing happens to him. But there's a lot of quarterbacks, and I think you can potentially wait on one. So
Well,
All right. So
I'm going to go with Matthew Golden at another wide receiver here for my second team at the next pick. He's got to replace a ton of production that's leaving Houston, and that offense is just a bonkers offense. So I think he's got a chance to, and we've talked about it many, many times over the last few weeks and months. He has a chance to really be a big player. So you got Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback, Braylon Allen and Nick Singleton at running back, Jacob Cowing, Matthew Golden at wide receiver for that team.
Oops. Yeah, I like that. So, Brian accidentally deleted your pick there on accident.
that's okay.
So Brian and I think we're both pretty. And it didn't copy and paste. So I'll just say it real fast before I put it in here. My pick at this pick, I like stacking players. I'm gonna go Tez from North Carolina to go with Drake May at receiver. Tez Walker, I think, is going to be definitely the number one guy, and I don't really see a whole lot of need for explanation. I don't feel the need to explain this here. So, and for some reason not copying, so I'll just type it in. But that's my pick here.
All right, so up to BMAC with his last two picks for the second team, snaking around at the end of the fifth and beginning of the sixth.
Yep. So this team so far, Judkins and Rocket. We've got Brock Bowers. We've got DeCorian Clark. Feeling great about where I'm at. So if I'm gonna kind of close this draft out a little evenly, as if I were filling out a roster, so I would probably wait honestly on quarterback, given the way things have gone so far. Like I wouldn't be taking a quarterback for a bunch of rounds, honestly, the way this draft has gone. But to kind of let's play it out as if we were finalizing our rosters, I guess, which we don't have to. But this one is a little bit tough, but I'll go quarterback, wide receiver here. I'm gonna go a little bit sleeper, a little bit down the rankings, but this guy will be bumped up in our next set of rankings, I'm pretty sure. So Jordan Curley from SMU, like that offense is going to be fantastic. He'll be wide receiver 1, and I'll round this out with a quarterback. So far off the board, we've got May, Penix, Nix, and Caleb Williams gone. Right now it's not worth a risk to take someone like a Kyle McCord, so I won't. I'll roll with Austin Reed at quarterback there for this team that will wrap them up.
It is pretty interesting that the third ranked quarterback goes on, even though it's only a 6-team draft. It's still the 26th pick for the third ranked quarterback to go. So that would be probably one that would end up being a pretty good sleeper when you look back at the draft, that he went in the 6th round.
Yep.
You talked about Curley at SMU. All I need left with this, so I got Malachi Corley, Blake Corum, Travion Henderson, Drake May, Tez Walker. I'm going to go tight end from SMU and RJ Maryland here. I think Curley and Maryland, I can see them both. Well, Curley's going to get more of the opportunities, but I can see Maryland getting plenty for a tight end in that SMU offense. So I'm going to go Maryland here at tight end.
So since we don't have to fill these rosters out perfectly, I mean, obviously having at least starting quarterback, running back, wide receivers is good. I'm going to take the Doug special pick right here for my second team, and make sure we're throwing the ball over the yard, and take Squirrel White with
Nice.
the pick there. See, I've been listening, Doug. I know how much you love your squirrels.
Hey, I approve of this message.
Sometimes he gets lost in the woods when we're playing golf, and you just see him over there playing with these little acorns, and he's thinking about Squirrel White. You just know it in that moment. All right, so to kind of round these out again, if I was drafting here, I'm not taking a quarterback, but I will just for the sake of the league and rosters kind of getting rounded out. There's a lot there that you like at quarterback, and there's not like a standout guy like I had with the last pick where Austin Reed was clearly the pick for me. So I'm thinking here you're looking at Pratt, you're looking at Stone, looking at Tyler Shuck, you're looking at Frank Harris, and then Chandler Morris. Love the dual threat ability out of Chandler Morris. TCU is replacing a lot. Obviously Quentin Johnston, the first round NFL pick at wide receiver, is gone. So I'm going to roll with Matt's 7th year quarterback and give me Frank Harris. And that'll be the last pick here for that team.
You just want to corner the mark on players named Frank.
Oh, sure.
So the last pick for my end of this draft and for this team with Bo Nix, Trey Benson, Torrey Horton, Jace McClellan, Jatavian Sanders. Again, I like stacking players, and I'm going to put Bo Nix with his wide receiver 1 here, and I'm going to put Troy Franklin as my last pick on this team.
Dang, nobody's clapping. So I guess it's around to Matt's pick here. Last pick in the draft. This team has Caleb Williams, and then at running back, Shipley and LaDamian Webb, and then at wide receiver, Emeka Ibuka, and then tight end, Aronde Getz in the second.
So it's pretty amazing when you can be a top 10 receiver and not even be the top ranked guy on your squad. We see that with Ohio State and with Washington, but I'm going to put Jalen McMillan from Washington fill out that wide receiver spot right there. I think that team is pretty solid. So I'm going to ask both of you guys the question here. So BMAC, Doug, you can't select one of the teams that you drafted. Doug, who do you think out of the other 4 teams that is out there is the strongest of the 4? BMAC, same question to you, and then I'll answer it last. You can't pick your own team. You got to pick one of the other 4 that are drafted. Who do you think's the strongest and why?
I've got a second tab. I was just going to say I've got a second tab with them like in order by position if you want to check them out that way. The other question I'd like to ask is which of the 2 teams that you drafted, which one would you prefer to take? But I'll take a look here too. And so out of the Doug and Matt teams, which one would I want to have the most? And I think it's tough. It would be between Matt 1 and Doug 2 for me. And obviously all the teams are good, but Doug 1 worries me a little bit at running back just in terms of touchdowns. They're both elite talents and but both potentially with dual threat quarterbacks that could steal in the red zone. And on Doug 2, you got May, who's elite, obviously at quarterback. Corum and Henderson, both guys that are elite. And while Henderson shares and Corum's shares a little bit as well, I think they'll both produce really well. But what I like the most is Corley and Walker. While Walker, it remains to be seen if he'll produce in that offense. But the stack with May to Walker is going to be a blast.
So which one would you take? You had to pick one right now and run with it.
And then Matt 1 with Webb, Shipley, Agbuka, Jalen McMillan, Gadsden, and Williams. That's a tough one, but I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Matt 1 on the edge there.
Boom! That's what I'm talking about. Let's go. Good job, BMAC. All right,
So-
Doug. What would
So
you say, Doug?
I mean, I can completely understand where BMAC is coming from, because for me, I'm torn between Matt 1 and BMAC 2.
Yeah.
I think Matt 1 is a solid team all around. I think the Gadsden pick at tight end is just going to help it even more. But Judkins to me is a huge running back. He's already proven he can do it. Rocket Sanders, I mean, you guys know in our personal league, he's on my team. I love the guy. And Bowers, when you got a tight end that potentially scores 5 or 6 more points a game than any other tight end, really, I think the difference in those teams is quarterback play. But I'm probably gonna go BMAC 2 for me on this, because that would be my two options is Matt 1 for sure and BMAC 2. As far even with the teams I drafted, honestly, Matt, looking at the lineups, Matt 1 and BMAC 2 are two of my top ones on this list.
I
Who you
think
got,
that
Matt?
I think that in a situation like this, especially if you're talking about starting off fresh like this in a draft, you want to be very careful with reaches. There might be a guy you really, really like, but is that reach going to harm you later on down the line? I think Trey Benson going as high as he did might have hurt the Doug 1 team, because he probably could have gotten him a little bit lower down the line. I would probably as well go with BMAC 2, and the reason being, on that BMAC 2 team who's drafting at the end of the snake, he got the number 1 and number 2 running backs and the number 1 tight end who's head and shoulders above everybody else that's out there. And that's going to be very difficult to overcome. It might be a little bit weaker at wide receiver, but I think that it would be difficult to say that anybody else has got a running back core that could touch that BMAC 2 team. He did a good job by stacking those, so I think I'd probably go with the BMAC 2 squad there as well. I could not go with Doug 2 because it would make me want to puke to have to root for the Tar Heels at all times. No, but in all seriousness, it's a great team there. But I think BMAC 2 kind of slides above there.
Yeah, I guess if you had to pick one of the 2 teams that you drafted, yeah, I agree with you guys. I think BMAC 2 is what I would take. And I love the receiving duo there of Clark and Curley, especially coming out of those 2 offenses. But who would you pick, Doug, out of your 2?
I would probably go Doug 2, but honestly, for me, and like I said, my rankings are gonna be different than anybody else's. Personal rankings, it's a slight edge for me for Doug 2 and Doug 1, honestly, because there's guys on Doug 1's, Doug 1 that you know what they're capable of, and we talk about dual threat quarterbacks. Like, we don't even know who the quarterback at Alabama is going to be,
Right?
And from what I've read in a lot of things, Trey Benson at Florida State, Jordan Travis potentially wants to show that he's more of a pocket passer this year. So, but I'm going to give Doug 2 the edge, I think, for mine.
How about you, Matt?
I think I would absolutely go with Matt 1 over Matt 2, and here's why. Obviously, Penix, Braylon Allen, Nick Singleton are returning starters that produced a ton last year. To me, the difference is with Matthew Golden and Squirrel White, they're guys that you are hoping they're going to come in and replace the elite talent that was there before them. You're going off of hope that they're going to be the next man up. On Matt 1, you've got 6 guys that have already produced in the spot that they're in, and you're just hoping that they can build on the season that they had previously. So that's why Matt 1 would be the team I would pick if I had to roll with one over the other.
So are we safe to say, and this is just overall, how are we feeling? Do we feel like it's potentially Matt 1 and BMAC 2 as the top 2 teams in this draft?
That's
I think so. I think so, and I think it also shows how important having that stack at the end of a snake draft is. That was huge because both BMAC and I were able to get a player and then stack at the end of those rounds, and I think that's part of the reason why they both of those teams are able to do what they did. What do you think, BMAC?
Yeah, I think those two right there are good, and
I think it's a consensus for me too that those two teams are probably the top two for me, honestly.
Well, good stuff. So that is the first mock draft. I think it would be very interesting if we later on did another one and we did have 12 teams out there, because then you're going to see something in a whole different fashion. I know that if we were drafting in a dynasty league, you're not going to be drafted in snake. So it's going to be a completely different setup as far as who's going to get picked when. Mm-hmm. You're not going to see someone like BMAC 2 being able to stack the number 1 and number 2 running backs at the end of a round, because they're not going to be able to. There are no stacks. It's just straight 1 through 12 picks. But yeah, this is when it gets fun. Seeing who's going to be out there and who's going to get drafted at what spots. BMAC, if you had a chance to go back to the other tab where you can look at the rounds as they took place, if you could change a pick of when you picked somebody and you're like, man, maybe I took this guy a little too high and I should have taken someone else, who would your pick be? Who would you switch? Same with you, Doug.
The only thing different for me is that if I wasn't trying to fill the roster to kind of close out this mock draft with a bow, I would have absolutely waited on quarterback. In a 6-team league where the other teams have quarterbacks, you have no urgency at that point until teams start thinking about their second quarterback, unless it was a 2-quarterback league. So that's the only thing that I would have changed is waiting till round 9 or 10 or so to start thinking about taking a quarterback.
I think I probably would have reconsidered the potential for Matt 2 of taking Quinshawn Judkins at the first pick instead of Penix.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I would not, that I don't like having that Penix pick there, but potentially if I had the crystal ball and knew that you were going to take the 1-2 at that snake, I might have tried to get one of those running backs at that spot. But having Braylon Allen and Nick Singleton on that team, I think was a pretty good door prize. What about you, Doug? Who would you potentially make different now that you see how the draft kind of played out?
I don't know if I would change much. The only wish that I would have is a player like Rocket Sanders would have fallen to me at Doug 1 in the second round. But as far as the drafting goes, I'm pretty confident. Like I said, based off the research I've done, that I think all 6 of these teams are pretty solid. So
they better be. When you've only got a 6-team league, if you don't have solid teams at the very top, then you've screwed up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's it for our first mock draft of the year. We'd love to hear what you guys think. Who do you think was drafted too high? Who do you think was drafted too low? Who do you think shouldn't have even been drafted at all? Let us know in the Discord. Let us know on YouTube. Let us know anywhere that you can. We want your opinions. We want to know what your thoughts are. So our next shows coming up are going to be the post-spring rankings updates, and then types of college fantasy football introductions. So if you're somebody out there that's wanting to get into college fantasy football and you don't know where to start, that's going to be the kind of show that you want to take a look at, because we're going to help you to really truly understand the differences in what's out there. So BMAC, Doug, you guys have any final words? When is the next round in your Doug is going to pay for everything at the South Carolina game stop on your golf tour?
Oh man, we haven't even talked about the next round yet, to be honest, but it's got to happen sooner rather than later at this point so we can start planning. So
yeah, yep, sounds good. It's my turn to pick the course, so I'm gonna try and pick somewhere nice, or maybe we'll pick somewhere we've never played before. And
so would either of you guys ever do that like a mini golf course, or does it have to be a full golf course?
Gotta be
full. Funny.
Gotta be a full golf course. Maybe we'll close it with a mini round for something stupid and small. Who knows?
Yeah,
We'll see.
a bonus round.
All right, for
Maybe that's a
BMAC,
good way, Matt. Maybe that's a good
Yeah.
way. Maybe if I come back and we end up tying 2-2, we do a little
I think
mini
that's
round
maybe the way to do
tiebreaker.
it.
All
Maybe
for
that's the way to do it.
But
All right, guys, that's our show for today. On behalf of Doug Gravely and BMAC, my name is Matt Knowles. We hope that you guys enjoyed this show. We'll hope you be back next time. This is the CFBDynasty.com podcast. See ya.
see ya.